Greetings everybody, I am Dr. Talib Al-Khair and I am the founder and CEO of BrainBridge Solutions. Today I will speak about how to fight terrorism using machine learning, or it's a form of AI. Now it's actually based on my PhD research and it is a little bit high level, but I'm trying to make it as simple as possible for people to understand the potential of AI in changing the way we treat risks in this world. Now, what I'm going to discuss today is based on my PhD research. I'll try to make it as simple as possible. Let me know what you think of this at the end of this video. Leave a comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. But basically, to put it short, we analyzed the rhetoric of ISIS magazine, ISIS newsletter, Al-Naba. And the principle is that terrorists use rhetoric in order to attract new members, in order to get more funding, in order to get all kind of media coverage. And this is actually an important and very critical part of any terrorist organization. What terrorists do in order to attract this attention, in order to get all this support, is they try to frame their cause. The backbone of any terrorist organization is for them to say that they represent a certain group, they are fighting for a certain cause that is relevant to this group, and that this group that they represent is under threat, and what they're doing is fighting this threat. So no terrorist organization will tell you that we are terrorists. They would all say the opposite. They would say we are freedom fighters, we are fighting for our rights, we're fighting for our freedom, and all that jazz. So what we can do with machine learning, we can implement technologies such as topic modeling and sentiment analysis on their data, on the terrorist data, and we can use that as a measure to see which other groups are actually now the target of this terrorist organization. Now, terrorists cannot function without having a very clear, distinguished enemy. And the thing about studying and analyzing terrorist rhetoric is that we can pretty much depend on it, because terrorists use the rhetoric as their main source of support, of advocating for their cause, of getting funding and all that. So we can say with good accuracy that we can depend on what terrorists say, we can actually believe what they say, because they have no other way of communicating, of gaining and gathering support. Okay, this is the first point. Now, what we can do here is we can choose any terrorist organization and we can study what they say. We can use large data, because nowadays most terrorist organizations will have some kind of media presence, online presence, whether it's Twitter or some online groups, or even dark web, or in the case of ISIS, they could have their own newsletters. We can take that and we can implement these technologies to figure out what do terrorists think in general about their cause, and what are the potential targets that they're going to have in mind, whether in present or in the future. Now, we can use technologies such as topic modeling and sentiment analysis in order to get a good idea of who are the targets gonna be in the future. We can grab all the data that we can from these terrorist organizations, and we can train our own model. And then when we conduct topic modeling and sentiment analysis on top of the data that we have, then we will have a number of groups that are represented in this data. And the beauty about topic modeling and sentiment analysis is that we can actually train the model for it to focus on the certain groups that we are interested in. And then when we get the results, we get the topic model, we get the various topics, we have an idea, each topic comes with keywords, and with that also we can get the sentiment that goes along the certain group that is represented by this topic. The next stage would be that we take these topics and we have them basically measured in time. The way that works is that we can see what are the groups that are represented in the data, how are they perceived and portrayed by these terrorist organizations, and then we can see how that changes in time. So let's say we have a terrorist group and we are interested in, we are analyzing their data and their rhetoric, and we can see that there are a number of outgroups, enemies for this terrorist organization, and the way they are represented changes in time. So in the case of ISIS, we can see that this month, depending on what's happening on the battlefield in the real world, the rhetoric changes. And we can see that, let's say this month, ISIS is more interested in attacking, in portraying a certain minority, certain group, whether it's Yazidis or Shias or Alawites, whatever it is. And we can use that as quite a good measure of what is the focus point of ISIS in this specific moment. And we can get from that ISIS now has certain priorities in terms of who needs to be fought and who needs to be killed. Okay, this applies on any terrorist organizations on any geography. So the principle of using machine learning to fight terrorism doesn't come from the algorithm itself. Like the AI does not tell you what is ISIS going to do. Here is where human ingenuity and human knowledge comes, because machine learning is just a tool, and when you're doing something like topic modeling, you need to know exactly what you're looking for. And this is something that all AI platforms right now are not equipped for that. For example, when we were studying ISIS, we needed to figure out which groups to study and to focus on. And you quickly learn that if you used the normal words, the normal terms that refer to the groups, you wouldn't get any hits, you wouldn't get any results. Why? Because ISIS used to use old, antiquated terminologies for these groups. So, for example, they wouldn't say Alawites, they would say Nusayris. They wouldn't say Christians, they would say Nasara. So, if you, that's why you need human experts to lead the machine learning process in order to get the best results. So, to make this quick and concise, you can use machine learning to study how terrorist organizations view other groups and which are the likely groups to be targeted next, as long as you have human experts who know exactly what to look for and are willing and capable of communicating to the machine learning algorithm how this can work. And this is where collaboration between different experts helps. In the case of my PhD, I collaborated with my research partner who was doing a PhD in applied statistics, and he's an expert in machine learning. And together we came up with results that I would not have been able to do myself. And the beauty of this new technology is that you can do analysis on such a massive amount of data that if you wanted to do the same analysis using just human expertise, you would need an army of analysts. Now, in my PhD, when we did the research on ISIS al-Naba, we figured out a number of groups that are targeted by ISIS. I will try to put them somewhere here on the screen so you can take a look and see how the topics look like. And what we did is we took these topics and the topics that represent certain groups or certain cluster of groups. We tried to see how these topics change over time in terms of their presence in the rhetoric. Okay, so once we have a good idea of how these topics changed over time when it comes to these groups, then we brought a data set from the University of Uppsala, and we tried to see if there's a correlation between how these topics change over time and the actual attacks on the ground against these groups. And of course, it's not magic, it doesn't work flawlessly, but some of the topics were somewhat useless, while other topics actually produced some fascinating correlations. So we could see that some topic can actually predict the attacks about 6 months in advance. Now, this is a new technology that we are just learning to do, learning how to master. This is only the beginning, and we at BrainBridge were trying to perfect this and work on new technologies and try to adopt new technologies and new frameworks. So when we did the analysis in the first time, we used something called latent direct allocation, LDA. But now we are using something much more advanced, we are using BERT. BERT is basically somewhat the same technology that ChatGPT uses. So imagine that we have just started with this and we could actually produce some fascinating, very strong correlations as to how to predict ISIS attacks. Now imagine the effect we could have if we actually had access to much more data and much more powerful machines and much more funding, of course. So this is basically the basics of how you can use machine learning in order to fight terrorism. I realize that this might sound a little bit maybe too advanced. Maybe it's not. I understand that it might not be easy to understand for somebody who is not very familiar with these technologies and with maybe political science in general. So I do apologize if I sounded a little bit obtuse, and like I'm trying to make this sound as simple as possible, and I'll try to simplify this and make more videos upon this in the future, so maybe people can understand better. But in any case, I could really use your help and your comments if you have any remarks, if there's anything that you think is not clear, any points that you want me to clarify in the future, just leave a comment below and I'll be happy to do that. This is a continuous conversation and I'm hoping this would last much further in the future. Thanks for tuning in and goodbye.